I chose to do overnight oats with pumpkin. And so this one is a neat one. Again, I only do easy, so you can imagine this was super easy. It's nice because I think you can change this as you go and use it. You know, pumpkin is nice this time of year. If you don't like pumpkin, you don't have to use it. But you can see it's really a simple piece. I made two different kinds. I made one with yogurt, one without, because as I was looking at all these different recipes, some of them called for yogurt, some of them didn't. So I thought, well, let's just try both. And so we'll go that route. So you can see on page 15, it just calls for rolled oats and milk. And some of them were specific with almond milk, soy milk. You use what you're comfortable with. I just used 2% milk. So that's what I had. That's what was easy to do. Pumpkin puree, just a can of pumpkin. The Greek yogurt, like I said, one of them has it, one of them doesn't. And then I just added some different spices, and I did add lib spice. To Spencer's dismay, I do not measure as much as I should, and I'm not as exact as I should be. But it calls for the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the vanilla. It calls for maple syrup. Some of them, they called for honey. So that, is a different sweetener. So this one I used maple syrup because I thought that went well with the pumpkin, but that would be something else you could use. And it's that simple. You just measure it all out and put it in there. This one, you can say a half a cup. I think I added 3 cups of oats in each bowl. So I just kind of just mixed as I went and tasted them, and they taste fine. I like there is a pumpkin in here. Like, I could taste the pumpkin. That's what I was missing last year, like I said, when I tried that recipe. We have a coworker who does this on a weekly basis, and what's nice, I said, is you can ad lib. She is allergic to nuts, but nuts would be something that you could add. She adds the mini chocolate chips to some of hers, different fruits. And so you could use fresh fruit, or you could use, like if you like the dried crayon, raisins or the crayon raisins or anything like that. And I already mentioned the honey is another sweetener. So I will have them both up here for you to try if you're interested. I made them like at 7 o'clock last night. They're ready to go, super simple. I know she says she makes she'll double her batch, and that's enough for like 4 days where she's eating her oatmeal. But like I said, I know it's not exact because I tried to make enough for everybody, so there you go with that one. Any questions there? Yes?
If you leave out the yogurt, did you double the milk?
I added just a little bit more milk. I didn't, I did enough just because I wanted it to make sure that the oats got soaked through. So yes, so I did add just a little bit more. Just a splash more. Like I said, it's hard to tell because I quadrupled it. 6th, whatever. Yes.
Is this a serving for one?
This is a serving. She said if she does just the half a cup, it would do probably 2 to 3 breakfasts, or for one person. So if you did that, it might be enough for 2 people for one morning, or 3. You can do it. She does some. I think you could use the canning jars. They mentioned that you could do the canning jars if you want to put it in that, and that makes it a couple batches. And I think with oatmeal, it's one of those things, are you eating just oatmeal, or are you eating something else with it? So you might have a smaller serving one day, so it kind of is it's what you are comfortable with. The other thing I did make, if you go back to page 10, and this is my apple recipe, I did an apple cinnamon bundt cake. And this one, again, I found this probably 2 or 3 years ago, looking for that fall. Michigan, we're from Michigan initially, so when the fall comes around, you want something with fall. That's the one thing I did find. You can't get apple cider down here early. Like, it does not come into the stores until like mid-September, October. So I used apple juice for this one, so you will notice that. That was a big thing, because from Michigan, where all the apple orchards and everything, I could not find it anywhere down here. Year-round? Okay, that's good to know. And I guess that's good to know. So year-round, at Publix, okay. Apple cider is at Publix year-round, so that's good to know. All right, so again, this is another easy one for me. This one has like basically 3 different steps. The cake part is easy. I should have brought my bundt pan, but I did not. You want to put the, the spray in there, and then you want to flour it so it helps make it easy to come out. And then once that, it's just a matter of mixing. You take a box of a yellow cake mix, a cup of, I use apple juice for this one, a cup of apple juice, a half a cup of cinnamon applesauce. So this is a really moist cake. So that's a big bonus there. 3 eggs, a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and I always add a little bit more because you can never go wrong with too much brown sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Mix that all up, dump it in your cake. It bakes for 40 minutes. I think I did 43 minutes on mine. I use my toaster oven because that's a convection oven, so I didn't have to turn the oven on if it's as hot as it is because that was crazy. While that is cooking, you put your sugar and cinnamon, just to make a cinnamon sugar topping. Once I took it out of the oven, I let it rest for about 5 minutes, and then I melted my butter, drizzled butter, and then I sprinkled the cinnamon sugar on top. Then I let that all cool, and then I did a glaze, and you take the powdered sugar and apple juice. So that's what you will find here. Again, I don't do difficult. Everything is there. I ended up making, there are 2 of them, but mine's a little bit smaller bundt cake, but it just turns out it's something nice. It's seasonal. It's easy. Of course, you can have a little ice cream with it if you so desire, but for this one, it's just the cake.
So I made a healthy breakfast apple crumble, but it's described as a dessert as well because you can put it on top of ice cream. That's what it said. So, but it's gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free, so it's pretty healthy. And it was super easy. I'm following Suzanne now that I have a child. It's super easy. I needed to do it really quick. So I used Gala apples, and I did a rough chop of the apples, nothing fancy. I measure with my heart, so it called for 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, but I just kind of put it all in there, and if I can smell it, I'm like, okay, that's good, that's enough. A pinch of salt, and then I did measure out the coconut oil, so it was 2 teaspoons of coconut oil, and you basically just saute that all in a pan, let it cook down, and cover it up, and then as that was going, I got my cookie pan ready. I lined it with parchment paper, and then I started my crumble, which that calls for oats. I did kind of measure that out a little bit, but again, I kind of just eyeballed everything. Oats, it called for pecans. You can probably use whatever nut you like, so walnuts, but I like pecans, so I use pecans. Coconut oil, and then again, honey. I measured that again with my heart. And you just process all of that together, and you get it, and it called for a little bit of water to get a consistency, because you want to I don't want to say sticky consistency, but you want it to kind of stick together a little bit so it clumps up. So processed all of that together. Once the apples were done, I placed it all on this pan. I got I put the crumble in a bowl, and I just spread it all across the apples. I did 2 batches of that because I wanted it to be covered pretty well. And you just pop it in the oven for, I believe it says at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. Yep. And you just wait for it to be golden brown. It made the house smell amazing. And that was it. And you let it cool down. It stays in the refrigerator for up to 3 days in an airtight container. It did say to reheat it. You would want to reheat it in the oven so it gets the crisp back, because once it's in the refrigerator, it'll lose its crisp. So it said to put it back in the oven just to get that crisp back. But super easy. You can put it over yogurt for breakfast if you want, or milk, non-dairy milk, whatever milk you choose. And like I said, or you can put it over ice cream for a healthy dessert.
We think about these topics months in advance, and it takes us a while to get the books done and everything. And when we were talking about this, Suzanne said, you are now expelled from the Suzanne's Easy School of Cooking and Baking. I said, okay, I can take it, I can take it. So yes, I understand, it's nice to put something easy together, you're in a hurry, you've got family, whatever the situation is, but there's once in a while, you just say, okay, I just want to make something, and maybe it's a holiday. So maybe once, twice a year, you're going to go all out, which is totally fine. So how many were here when we did the What's Cooking pie inspired 2? Awesome. 3, okay, 5, 6, okay. So out of about 800 people here today, we got 4, perfect. So I'm just gonna tell you about some of my challenges over the years and things I've had to do to fix them. And I've also had some challenges as recently as last week. We had a little staff get-together party to welcome Melissa back. And I actually made a pumpkin pie ahead of time to try it. And it had some challenges, and I'll show you how I fixed it. So the first thing that I would recommend, you guys know I like my thermometers, for those of you who've been here a while. So I thought, let me make sure the oven's telling me correct, right? So you buy an oven, you say, I want to put it on 350. Is it really 350? How do you know? Well, you can put the little thing in there. It's got the dial. That'll tell you. I don't trust those because they're like a spring thing. I like the digital ones. So I brought this today to show you. I brought my little one, the single pen before. This one is made by the same company, only it's called their ThermoWorks Smoke. It's actually built for a barbecue, but you can use it for the oven. And what makes this nice is it comes with this blunt probe that's built to tell you what the temperature of whatever it is you're cooking in is. So I stuck this in the oven. It's connected to this thing, and it tells you what the temperature is. What's interesting about electric oven is you don't turn it on and it's 350 and stays there. It does this. So then as an hour goes by, say you're doing a long cook, it goes from this to this. And there's ways to even it out, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So when I did this a few years ago, now I've got a hot point range, okay? It's like a $300 stove. It's nothing fancy. When I did this, because I thought, why is stuff taking longer and longer to bake? Why is it not browning? Well, the oven was off by like 20 degrees. And I didn't know that until I used this little guy. So I downloaded the manual from the internet for that particular oven that I've got and how to calibrate it. And they walk you through it. You push like 2 buttons, and then with 1 foot up, you hit this other button. But I went in and I told it, okay, add 20 degrees. So when I put in 350, it's actually changing it to what, 370-ish? So I don't have to constantly remember, oh, it's always 20 degrees colder, so I need to. Or you may have the reverse problem. If your oven is browning or cooking stuff too fast, it may be too hot. The other thing I found out about my oven by using this is that one side is hotter than the other. So I'm constantly having to remember to rotate things. And even at that, sometimes I have problems. And one of the problems you're going to see today, it's nothing wrong with the recipe, it's nothing wrong with the technique, it's an oven issue. Okay, pie dough. How many people make pie dough? Oh, there's the same 5 or 6 people again. All right, this is going to be great. Is everybody going to the store and buying the thing you pop open and unroll? Oh, come on now. You guys are killing me. All right. All right. Easy. I know. Suzanne's over here giving me the easy bit. All right. Well, guess what? We made pie dough. I'm going to show you a couple different ways on how you can make it, and it's not that hard. So you got a couple different options, and these are things that I've found that's worked over the years and some of the challenges that I've had. The first one is I've tried every different kind of flour under the sun. White Lily, Walmart flour, gold medal, King Arthur flour, Pillsbury. They all act differently because they're all different protein content. So when you see a recipe that says you're going to need like 4 to 8 tablespoons of water for pie dough, and people are like, why in the world is there such this large range? And they'll say, well, it's the humidity in the air. I've talked to pastry chefs, they all poo-poo that. They go, no, it's the protein content that's in the flour and how it's milled. So I use King Arthur All-Purpose. I think many of you have probably seen it on the store. It's got the red and white label. It's made in, was it Vermont? It's here in the good old US of A, right? So their protein content is like 11.3%, something like that. So it's a higher protein content than, say, like a gold medal at 10%. White Lily is 8%. Have you ever tried rolling a pie crust and then to pick the thing up and it just falls apart on the board? That's because there's not enough gluten. Everybody says gluten's bad. Well, you need some to hold the thing together to get it into the pie pan, right? So I found King Arthur gives me the best result. And I don't think my pie crusts are tough. You may decide differently when you try it. The other thing I do is I add a little bit of baking powder. Everybody talks about layers and getting the puff. You know, putting butter in there, the steam's gonna, the water from the butter is gonna turn into steam and it's gonna go puff, right? Yeah, but to help you get a little extra lift, I generally use baking powder. The only time I'm not gonna use the baking powder is if I am going to do a blind bake or a par bake, which we'll talk about later. If you're just gonna do like a 2-crusted apple pie, go nuts with the baking powder. Put a couple of teaspoons in there, it's gonna look great. All right, your fats, shortening, butter, and then the L word, lard. Love it. So here's the thing. I'm in the camp of half butter, half something else. Some people like an all butter crust, some people like an all vegetable shortening crust, whatever. That's kind of a personal thing. I like both. Butter will give you the flavor, obviously, of butter, and it will help give you flake. But I find that lard or shortening will give you the tenderness. Now, I used to use the lard that was at the Wally World. Comes in a green and white tub. The problem is that product does not move really fast. So when you open it, it could smell rancid. Or it could be a little porky, because lard's coming from pig, right? So I went to vegetable shortening, and I've been using that for a while, but I'm just not happy with the vegetable shortening because it just doesn't brown like lard, and it just doesn't flake like lard for what I like. I've heard for years about this stuff that you can buy. It's called leaf lard. Has anybody heard of that? No? Okay, this is the stuff that pastry chefs are after. They don't sell it in the store. You have to buy it as a specialty place online. I found a farm up in Wisconsin where they make it from heritage pigs. It's actually the fat that comes from the kidneys of the pigs. This sounds disgusting, but it's neutral flavor and there's no porkiness to it. When you get the lard from the store, they use like the back fat and stuff like that. That's why it's not so hot. All right, so it's called leaf lard. You want to look it up? I would suggest trying it. I've got mine's coming today from the big box that delivers you stuff. All right, so now when it comes to putting your fat in with your pastry or your flour, you got a couple different ways. You can use your hands. You can use the 2 knives. My problem is I got big hands. I'm always hot as a person. If anybody's ever been to that big cooler at Sam's where they keep all the lettuce and stuff, it's 37 in there. I am at home. Everybody's freezing. I'm like, hey, I'm ready to set up a lawn chair. Let's stay a while. Everybody else is freezing. So that means I could possibly, I'm going to be melting the fat that's in the pie dough, which you don't want to do. So another option is you can get one of these things. Pastry cutter, right? You can get these at Walmart, wherever you buy your stuff, $5 or so, and away you go. And what's nice about this, again, you're not touching it, and it works pretty well. I found a different way to make pie dough. It's not the food processor. You can do it in a food processor if you have one of those. You go zip, 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 and then you're done. Problem is then you got to spend 20 minutes cleaning the food processor. So I've kind of gotten away from that. So I found another way that I use. And especially we did a pie baking class or dough class last year. When we did another class, it was called the master class. And a lot of folks said, my hands don't let me grip stuff like they used to. No problem. If you got one of these things, otherwise known as a KitchenAid, I make all my pie dough in the KitchenAid now. It's so simple. You take the bowl, you put your flour, your sugar, your salt, baking powder, whatever, your dry stuff. You hit it with a paddle for about a minute. Done. Take your shortening, if you're doing a two fat thing, shortening, lard, whatever, zip that for about 30 seconds on low. You don't want to go cranking it because you'll turn it into, it won't accept the water at that point. Real slow. Speed. All right, dump your butter in there. Crank it on slow for about another minute or so. It's done. Well, you have to add the water. So then on slow, you drizzle the water in and you got pie dough. What's nice is you're only dirtying the bowl, you're dirtying the paddle, that's it. You don't need to worry about if your hands are gonna be able to grab this thing or whatever you got going on, that's fine. Plus, you can make multiple batches of pie dough. If you're gonna do this, if you like making a single crust, double crust, whatever kind of pie you like making, make 2 or 3 of them, throw it in the freezer. It freezes great. So there you go. Especially, this is something you can do ahead during pie, before the holidays get here. It's another thing you can check off your list. Question?
Do you use the regular paddle or you use dough?
All right, so the question is, what attachment do I use? I use the regular paddle that comes with it. I don't use the dough hook. KitchenAid will sell you a pastry paddle. You don't need it. So, but if you want to do that, then that's fine too. All right, the other thing is we're going to talk a little bit about layers as far as the pie dough goes. We mentioned about butter and the steam. If you want to create layers and extra flakiness in your finished pie dough, this is what I do. This is going to be our pie dough for today, otherwise known as a towel. So when you roll this thing out, your pie dough out, it's like this on your board. So now when you go to, before you put it in the fridge, you're going to fold it. So now you basically have 3 layers of dough. Does that make sense? You roll it out. You fold it. You fold it. Has anybody ever had a croissant or a Danish? That's called laminate pastry. It's from the French. They usually put a butter block in there. We're basically doing the same idea. So then when it bakes, all those layers are going to start to come apart. So it's going to flake. So that's going to help you.
You do that twice.
Yeah, you could do it 2 or 3 times. That'll definitely help your finished product. All right, now about the straight bake versus par bake versus blind bake. I had to get real familiar with this again, which you're going to see in a minute because I had some issues. Straight bake means you're going to fill your pie plate with the dough. You're going to put the filling in there. If it has a top crust, you put the top crust in there, you throw it in the hot box. Done. That could be problematic if any of you do custard pies or you have a liquidy filling or something like that, and then maybe the bottom isn't going to cooperate. This is what was happening to me when I did the test pie with pumpkin pie. I wasn't real happy with the bottom. So you can do what's called a par bake. So this is great for custard pies, I wouldn't do it with a double pie, especially a fruit pie, because a fruit pie is going to be in the oven for at least an hour, if not an hour and a half, so it's going to bake no problem. So you put your pie in, or your pie dough in, you're going to put your weights in. Now you can buy pie weights, they're kind of expensive, and you need a lot of them. So I went to the bean aisle, dried beans, got a 10-pound thing of beans for like $1. I put parchment in, put the beans in, threw it in there for $4.25 for 20 minutes. Take the pie beans out, put it back, dock it with a fork. Then I like to brush it with an egg wash on the bottom to help create a barrier. Put it back in the oven for about 3-ish minutes. That's just basically to cook the egg on top. And then pull it out. Then you could put your custard filling or whatever that's going to have to go back in the oven. Now, if you're going to do like a cold pie, like a chocolate silk or something like that, that's going to be cooked on the stove, then you'd want to put it back in the oven for maybe another 10, 15 minutes to finish baking the crust by itself. So that's kind of like the 3 different kinds of bakes that you can do on your pies. Does that make sense? Okay, you can also use rice and sugar, by the way, if you have some of those. Okay, we're on to pumpkin pie now. We're going to start pulling this all together. I'm on page 6. You know this is a great recipe because it's on 2 pages. This is why Suzanne said you've been expelled from the Suzanne's Easy School of Cooking. Okay, so let's just kind of look at the recipe. So on page 6 at the top says pie dough ingredients, right? We got the King Arthur flour we talked about, salt, baking powder. Use vegetable shortening, or if you want to try the lard stuff, that's what I'm going to be going to. Again, you want to use unsalted, cold, cubed butter. You say, well, Spence, I don't have unsalted. I got tons of salted butter in my fridge. Can I use it? Sure. So what you would do then is I would just back maybe instead of 1.5 teaspoons of salt, I would use 1 teaspoon because there's already salt in the butter. And of course you want to use ice cold water. So we kind of already talked about how you can put that together. So now as far as the filling ingredients go, there's a secret ingredient in here, but it's not in the ingredients list. And I'm going to tell you what it is here in a minute. So basically you're going to take your granulated sugar, brown sugar, flour, salt, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and a little bit of black pepper. I know that kind of freaks people out. You're not going to taste it. It kind of rounds everything out. Put that in a bowl, give it a mix. In another bowl, mix your eggs, pumpkin puree, and your heavy cream. In case you're wondering, I brought that in. This is a Wally World brand, 100% pure pumpkin. There's not pumpkin pie filling. You want this stuff. No, you can't use plant-based milk. No, you can't use fat-free milk. No, you can't use 2% milk. You want to use heavy whipping cream for this. That's what's going to help give it some substance and some creaminess. So, I mean, if you want to substitute it, try it, but it's not going to be as thick and luscious because, you know, you put this in your coffee in the morning, it's going to wake you up. It's going to be awesome. All right. So basically, you're going to take the dry, mix it into the wet. Also, you'll notice that there's a little bit of flour in this. Flour, because this is a custard dessert, will help it keep it from cracking. And also help absorb any free water that might be in this that's floating around. So it's not a whole lot of flour, it's 3 tablespoons, but it helps. Now if you're making a pie like this, I've made a bunch like this, no problem. It won't crack, as long as you don't overbake it. If you overbake it, then that's another problem. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, then basically put the thing in the oven and away you go. So we were talking about this, Suzanne and I and Alyssa, they said, well, that's great, you're going to do pumpkin pie, but is this going to feed 80 people? Little cubes. So I went home and thought about this, and I went through my archive, and I went, oh, I got the answer. Do you know what the answer is?
Pumpkin slab pie.
Pumpkin slab pie, yes. So, you'll notice there is some cracking on this. The reason why is because my oven does not heat evenly. This about takes the entire rack to bake this from side to side. Even with rotating it, I watched it like a hawk. It took 30 minutes instead of, because this is not as deep as this, you're only cooking that much custard. It cracks. But I know how you people are. Okay. Thank you to one of our patrons. They brought this for us. They said, oh, do you guys need anything? I said, you know, I forgot to get the whipped cream. Would you? So Siobhan got this for us. So I know what's going to happen. Y'all are going to go nuts like 2 teenagers going like this up here, okay? So we've got this to cover that up. Not a big deal. Now, with a pumpkin pie, this is the one from last week. Yes, it's strange it didn't get eaten, so I kept some of it. So the first thing I do, I'm a crust person. How many crust people do we have out there? Oh, about a quarter of you. Okay. Yeah, I know we're in the minority. Everybody else likes the filling, but I'd rather, eat the crust. So I turn this over. Do you guys see how pale that is? Yeah. And this, not so hot. I'm going to leave this up here for you guys to look at. Obviously, don't eat it. But so hopefully this will be better. So what I did was I went back to the drawing board and said, okay, I need to fix this. First thing I got thinking about is the pan. I baked the one from last week in this. I have like 30 of these at the house. They're awesome. It's amazing. If you don't have any, get some. But what color is this? Silver, aluminum. The thing that you put in your car windshield right now to help keep your steering wheel cool. What color is that thing? Right, it reflects heat. No bueno. So then I got thinking of this is what keeps me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, no kidding. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to fix this. So I'm like, I really like this. I wonder if they make it in black. Black attracts heat. And then I got looking at this thing and I said, wait a minute, it's got this little lip right here, but it's not like this. So I get on the internet thing, and now I'm searching, and I'm searching, and I'm looking. I'm trying everything to find this pan that I think is going to work, because I'm gambling with this. I thought, you know what? I'm driving home from work. Let me stop at the Big Wally World, just for the heck of it. I did not have any high hopes. I just said, then at least I know I can check that off, and I can sleep maybe tonight, because I've thought about this. I couldn't believe it. It was like a bad romance novel. Spencer found something and they were running through the baking aisle in slow motion. I didn't even open it yet in case anybody wanted to look at it. They've got a set. This is awesome. This is, yeah, it's 3 of them. So basically it's so this is like a set that you might get, you might already have. This is called a half sheet pan. This is your jelly roll pan. And then this is called a quarter sheet pan because it's a half of a full one. If bakers use the great big ones. So, and I went, okay, because Walmart will sell you their pans, which is fine. But the problem is the bigger the smaller the pan, the height of it was getting smaller and smaller. All of a sudden your pumpkin pie is going to be this thick. I said, that's not going to work. These all have the same 1-inch lip. And look how thick this border is. Your crust can sit on this when you go to blind bake it or par bake it. $20. I couldn't get to the register fast enough. It's black. It's steel, not aluminum either. It's well, it's anodized, yeah, steel. So then, question? Walmart. Yeah, it's called. I'll leave it up here. It's from a company called Time and Table, and you can read all the stuff that's on here. It's oven safe up to 430 degrees. So I thought, okay, I'm doubled down, right? I got my pan. Awesome. You know what? Maybe I should cook this like I cook pizzas. I really want to make sure this sucker's done. I'm not messing around. So what I did was I made another change. I lowered the pie from here to here. Not on the very bottom rack, but on one up. I also put my baking steel in there. That's also 1/2 inch thick. 40-pound piece of steel. That's fun to move around. So I preheat the oven for an hour with this steel, like I'm going to bake a pizza. How do we know the steel's hot? Because the thing's going to go beep, beep, beep in the first half hour. Well, the air's hot, but is the steel hot? Well, Spencer has another tool. You guys ever seen one of these things? This is a laser. Don't be chasing the kids around with this. You point it at something, and it puts a little dot on the wall or whatever. So I could check and make sure that steel was hot. So within an hour, it was up to 435 degrees. I was ready to go. I had to bake 2 pies back to back last night. When I got in with the pumpkin pie, I was going to put the apple pie in there. I thought, wait a minute, I better check the steel. when I went ahead and zapped it, it was down 100 degrees. I had to wait another half hour for the oven to reheat that steel again because it pulled everything, all the heat out of it. So that's definitely a help if you need that. The other thing that since I par baked this crust, is I freezed it solid first. This is the other thing I found that can get people in trouble, and it's nailed me in the past, is I'll make my crust, roll it out in the pan, flute it and all this stuff, and then I stick it in the freezer. I've got one of those deep freeze that's, like -20. And I did this a day before. So you can do a lot of these steps ahead. So when it comes time for your event, you're not scrambling, trying to get everything all done at once. So now it's hard as a rock. Put your beans, your rice, whatever you're going to put in there. Now the steel's hot. Take it out of the freezer, throw it onto that steel. So basically what's going to happen, the crust is going to go, holy cow, is it hot? And it's going to set real fast. So if you've ever had pie crust that just goes like this, or like this, all over your oven, this will help freeze your pie dough. Even if you're doing this size, freeze it first. We're going to talk about apple pie in a minute. Guess what? I freeze that sucker solid. Okay, so let me just double check and make sure I've told you everything. So I par baked the this for, again, $4.25 for 20 minutes. That's not in your book, so you may want to write that down. If you, after class, we can talk about it. And then I added the filling, and then I baked it for another 30 minutes. Done. There it is. So that's the pumpkin pie. How many people don't like pumpkin? You're not going to hurt my feeling. One. So, not a problem. I've had some people that said, I don't like pumpkin. They try a little piece of this, and they said, you've turned me. So, try a little bit of it. You may like it. Yeah, and I say, that's a great idea. Could have used the broiling pan she mentioned, if you didn't hear that. Again, I got really lucky with this set of pans. I'm going to go nuts. You think I'm going to come in here, or I'm going to be like, I got to step away from the desserts.
How big is a 40-pound chunk of steel?
It almost fills the bottom rack of the oven, and it's about that thick. So I've really got to be, it's a flat sheet of steel that almost covers pretty much most of that, because that steel is going to transfer the heat to the bottom of the pie and make sure the crust is cooked all the way through.
I never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, if any of you have baking stones or pizza stones, if you've heard of that, I've had 2 of them and they've all cracked. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I went and got a baking steel. If that thing cracks, I got bigger problems. So the steel will not crack. Question? Where do you get a baking steel? All right, so where do you get the baking steel? Guess where? Amazon. Yeah, Amazon. I can't think, I don't think Walmart carries them or anything like that. If you're doing smaller stuff and you're doing like this, if you have like a cast iron pan, you could probably preheat that upside down and then put this on top of the cast iron pan, and that might help do the same thing if you're trying to, Steels are nice, but they can be heavy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
But once they're in there, they're okay, right?
Yeah, you can leave them in there. That will definitely help. So you don't have to move them if you don't want to. Cost? They're all over the place. I'd say they're anywhere from $50 to $200. It just depends on what you want to spend. All right, so for the apple pie, a couple of things with this. So the dough, we kind of went over the dough. You know how to make that. We've already done that. Now for the filling, I like using either Fiji or Honeycrisp because they're already sweet, they're cheap, and they hold their shape during baking. I tried Granny Smith once, and my family said, I don't know what you changed. Don't do it ever again. I went, okay. So our family did not like that. Today, what we are using, because this is what Sam's had in stock, Honeycrisp. Now, this recipe is for this, okay? 4 pounds. If you're making a slab pie, 10 pounds. So you got brown sugar, granulated sugar, cinnamon, salt, nutmeg, cornstarch is to help obviously thicken juices, lemon juice, and some butter. So I've tried cooking, so you sit there, if you've ever made an apple pie, it's fun. You sit there, you peel the apples, you have to core the apples, you got to slice the apple. Ugh. Try this with 10 pounds, it's fun. But then if you're going to try to work on the stove, because the heat's all coming from the bottom, you got to stand there and you got to keep stirring it and stirring it for like 2 hours. Yes, by the way, I cook my fillings ahead of time. I don't put anything in my pies raw. So this way I'm not dependent on them getting tender in the oven. And plus, when you cook something and you see the stuff coming off called steam, what's happening? The excess moisture is leaving. Yes, this is a good thing. Plus, it will thicken. So I thought, what's an easy way to do this? Let's try putting it in a slow cooker. So I crank it on high, put the lid on. Once it gets hot, about every 15 minutes, I come over. You see the steam leave. I stir it, put the lid back on. I can go do something else. It's not like standing at the stove, constantly stirring. So if you've got a slow cooker, I would also put a liner in it. So when you're done, you take the liner, you throw it in the garbage. That's another easy cleanup thing. So the other thing is you can also cook the apples to make sure that they're tender to your liking. Just take a knife and put through them, and you cook them as long as you want. So and then what you want to do is you want to then take the filling, put it in the fridge overnight so it's good and cold. That's another tip for you. The other thing is by doing this, you won't get what's called like a dome hole. So when you put the top crust on and you use raw apples, it's like this. And then what happens, the crust sets, the apples cook down, now you got this great big gap in there. That's no fun. So this takes care of that. So it's another issue that we've kind of come up with to fix it. Okay, so the other thing I do is before you want to assemble your pie, whether it's a pumpkin pie or a apple pie, take your prepared pan. Let's say you're going to use this or this. I line it with foil, spray it with Baker's Joy, and I put it in the refrigerator. So now I'm getting ready to roll out the pie dough. I pull this out, it's cold. Then you can put your pie dough in here. If you need to crimp it and do all your stuff, it's going to help keep your pie dough cold. It won't get warm and get sticky on you. So that's all you got to do is put this in the fridge ahead of time. The other thing I didn't mention about when you go to make your pie dough is when you go to roll it, this is like what freaks everybody out. Sticks to the counter. They can't get it into the pan. All these problems, right? So when we did our pie class last year, I brought in a little tool. And everybody went, I should have been a rep for this company. I think everybody out and bought one. I've tried the flour on the counter. I've tried the plastic wrap. I've tried parchment paper. I've tried all these different things and had problems until I watched this, I guess she's somebody's grandma that's like 90 years old, and she's rolling out this pie dough, and it came right up off, and I went, what is that? And they still sell it. I brought mine today. I'm going to warn you, it's well loved. This is called a pastry cloth. So when you first get this, you'll rub like at least a cup of flour into this and it's going to disappear. Then you rub another cup of flour in there till it's like seasoned, kind of like a piece of cast iron. So then what you do is, yes, there's flour in this. I take it out in the front yard and give it a shake. The neighbors love me. It also comes with this little sock that you put on your rolling pin. If you're rolling your pie dough out to this size, this causes people a heart attack, let alone going for something like this. Rolled this out because you got your edges on this pie cloth. Once it's rolled out into a flat sheet. I like a baker's pin. This was a good gift from somebody. Color's okay. I can rock pink. But this is a baker's pin because it's all the same thickness. This is a French rolling pin if you like this. It's tapered. I use this one a lot. I put the sock on here and I roll it out. So now I got this huge sheet of dough on my counter, but it's on the pastry cloth. So I start the edge and I roll the dough up on this. Now it's all loaded on my pin. I take my pan, or it could be your pie plate, and you unroll it. Easy peasy. No sweat. So the pastry cloth is probably $10 on Amazon, okay? All right, so back to the apple pie real quick. I just want to make sure I haven't told you anything, or I haven't forgot to tell you anything. So I assemble the pie. Now remember, the filling is cooked. Put the top on. I freeze the entire pie on purpose. Now, at this point, you could store it for later if you're like, oh, I want to make this ahead, and then all you got to do is pull it out and bake it. So yes, I do bake them from frozen. So I've got my baking steel in here. It's good and hot. I know the oven's at the correct temperature. I do 425 for 20 minutes. Why? Because I want that crust to set. Then I turn it down to 375. And what am I looking for? Color. Browning. Do I care about the filling? No, it's already cooked. So if it doesn't bubble and all, who cares? Once it looks to the browning that you like, it's done. So last night, I got down 20 minutes and then another 60 at 375. I looked at it and I said, you know what? It needs an extra 10 minutes. And sure enough, it did. So again, this is not going to feed us. This is how you make an apple pie. Okay? So this is it. So there you go. All right, so we talked a lot about this stuff, so I don't think I think we basically went over everything, believe it or not. So yes, if you are looking for some pie thing, maybe try a darker pan. I've not really found these in a darker color yet. If you like this, I would try slab pies. You're like, well, I'm not going to eat that great big thing. It's just, you know, me and my spouse. Well, then make a little small one and share with the neighbors. But I think these are actually even easier to work with. You can throw them in the freezer real easy. And just, if you don't want to get the baking steel, I get it. Then what I would do is still bake your pie lower in the oven. And you can go that route. But at least you can get the square pans. Question?
You said earlier you line the pans with aluminum foil?
On the inside, yes.
On the inside, not parchment paper?
The only reason why, if I'm problem with parchment, I used to do this, and I love parchment paper, is I can't get it to sit in the corners really easy. So I'm trying to push the dough in here, the pie dough, to get it to fit where the foil is going to fit to this shape. That's the reason why I've gone back to foil. Otherwise, yes, I would love to use parchment. Even if you take a piece of parchment and you crumple it up and then flatten it out, crumple it up, flatten it out, it'll fit a shape. But still, these hard corners, it still struggles. So I'm trying to get, especially with a slab pie, I'm trying to get as much filling in there as I possibly can so the corners aren't basically like this. Good question. And then, oh, question over here? Who'd like to go?
Me.
Oh, you want to go? Okay.
What about the glass pie plate?
I do not, I stay away from glass pie plates because I'm going from the freezer to a 425 degree steel. I could just see Pyrex going, so that's why metal is my friend. Are you, you guys had questions? Go ahead. Oh, what's the purpose of the aluminum foil on the bottom? Okay, easy cleanup. This is also This is actually, now I have a set of pans I use for my pizza making. So these are actually my grandma pizza making dishes. Can you guys see it's kind of dark? So do you think I'm going to let somebody go crazy with this on a knife? It's non-stick. We're going to lift this up, and I'm going to yank it right out, and we're going to throw it on the counter and cut it. Plus, if you go to somebody's house and you're not sure you're going to get your dish back, you can offload it. So that's the reason for the aluminum foil. Good question, I forgot to mention that. Ah, great question, I forgot to mention that. So the question was, you know, we got bugs in Florida, you got flour on this thing, isn't that kind of like not good? Keep this in the freezer. So I put it in the Ziploc bag, I store this in the freezer along with my flour. Yes.
And the flour is on the fruit, on the sleeve as well.
Yes, the flour is also on the sleeve. So when you buy your 5-pound bag of flour, especially if it's whole wheat, keep it in the freezer or else it will go bad over time because there's oil in it. Somebody else had a question.
Should you freeze all pies? I mean, pumpkin pie and blueberry pie and,
Well, so blueberry, when I make that, I freeze it like an apple pie.
okay.
But because pumpkin is a custard, so what I'll do is I will freeze the crust ahead of time.
Okay.
And then I will keep now back to the pumpkin pie, I don't know if I mentioned this, the secret ingredient, I might have forgot that. When you mix the filling, don't bake it right away. Keep it in the ice box for at least a day. It allows the spices to marinate and go through the cream and go through the pumpkin. I tried this both ways. Yes, there's a huge difference by cooking it right now and by waiting at least a day for your filling. That's the secret ingredient. I apologize.
Good morning. My name's Lynn. Most of you have probably tasted all my concoctions. I do apologize. It's only August, probably a little bit early for chili season, but I made a pumpkin black bean turkey chili. And I did cheat. I used chicken because I didn't have any turkey available, but the recipe's up here. It's very easy. It's just onions, peppers, garlic. Kind of saute that in the pan for a few minutes. Throw in some cumin and oregano. Kind of just let that all get married together. Shred the turkey or chicken, whatever you want. Throw the black beans in here, can of tomatoes, a little chicken broth. I did also add just a little bit of cayenne pepper, just because I like a little spice. But anyway, I hope you enjoy. There's some little cups here and a little scooper, so enjoy.
I made this. I have never made it before, so it's going to be a surprise to me. And it had a secret ingredient, and that's why I made it. The secret ingredient, bourbon. Anyway, don't get too excited because I made this pumpkin bourbon cheesecake, and the cheesecake mixture has 1.5 tablespoons of the bourbon in it. So don't get real excited. And it also has a whipped cream made out of the heavy cream topping, and that was also 1 tablespoon. I did not put the topping on it. I have it in a bowl. And the topping here did not have any sugar in it. I added a little confectioner's sugar because it just tasted kind of, but I don't know, with the pumpkin cheesecake, maybe it didn't need the sugar, but I did add a little confectioner's sugar. And one of the cheesecakes didn't crack. It didn't crack in the oven, but it cracked when I was trying to take it out. The second one cracked when I tried to take it out of this spring form pan, and I was juggling it and I cracked it, but that's why. And I didn't let the flavors sit overnight in the mixture, so I'll try that maybe next time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol. and I have a caramel apple surprise. This is a dip that we have to have every Thanksgiving, every Christmas for the kids. Bottom, it's really easy to make, super, super easy. Cream cheese on the bottom. Caramel dip on top of the cream cheese. Crushed Heath bar. The toughest part is the apples, cutting up the apples, slicing them up. We put Mountain Dew and dip the apples in Mountain Dew because the kids like the caffeine buzz they get, and it keeps the apples from getting brown. Today's I have Sprite, 0 sugar Sprite on the apples to keep the apples from getting brown. That's about as fast and easy as it can go. If you're allergic to nuts, I think Heath bars have nuts in them. So some people have put Butterfinger, they've crunched up a Butterfinger, but super easy, super fast, and it goes pretty quickly.